and curious wanderer who believes beauty is a kind of medicine and joy, a form of liberation. Through her work, she creates space for the in-between moments, for healing, for release, and for becoming. This morning, Gabrielle will guide us through what it means to blossom not just once, but again and again. She'll invite us to see grief, letting go, and renewal as necessary parts of our own creative unfolding. So let's welcome Gabrielle to the stage and together explore what within us is ready to blossom.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I want to start off by being perfectly honest. When I was practicing in my mirror with my scarf on, I did not practice projecting. So if you cannot hear me at any point in time, please feel free to let me know. Before we dive into the creative activity, I just want to let you all know that I am deeply uncomfortable right now for a lot of reasons. So I thought I'd break the ice a little bit. So is anybody familiar with Shonda Rhimes and her autobiography, Year of Yes? Okay. So there is an excerpt from this book that I love that I feel like completely embodies how I'm feeling right now, and I just thought I'd share it with you all. So, this is weird. Me giving a speech, in general, I do not like giving speeches. Giving a speech requires standing in front of large groups of people while they look at you, and it also requires talking. I can do the standing part okay, but you looking at me and me talking, not a fan. I get this overwhelming fear of terror, fear, dry mouth, heartbeat super fast, everything gets a little bit slow motion, like I might pass out or die or poop my pants or something. And I mean, don't worry, I'm not gonna pass out or die or poop my pants, mainly because just by telling you that it could happen, I have somehow neutralized it as an option. Vomit? Vomiting is possible. I could vomit, but see, I've said it out loud and vomiting is now off. Neutralized, we are good. So now that I have made myself even more uncomfortably comfortable for all of us, in that spirit, we're going to lead into our creative activity now. So let's stay in this moment of honesty and playfulness, and we're going to sit with our table for a little bit. So this activity is called the Pollinator Exchange, and Annika helped me come up with this. Yeah. So flowers blossom to pollinate, so our creative process does the same. One idea, our talents, our resources, that vision, that thing that's always kind of in the gut, the back of our minds that we don't always share, let's think about that a little bit. And I want you to share it with someone at your table or the whole table. So we're gonna do this for about 3 minutes. And this isn't a dissertation, this isn't an elevator pitch. I just want you to share one thing that you are super proud of, that you've been nurturing or nourishing in your life. A talent, a resource, an idea, a vision, a business, a project. Something that you're super proud of, share it with the people next to you. You got 3 minutes. And Annika's timing us. So. All
right, you want the first? Wow, that's big. Do we want to table share? Like, I know the share diet all of that. And I'll support artists.
Starting to be a part of
So I got a bunch of. I think for me, when we went to share new opportunities, we had so much knowledge at the start. We need to get back to that. Yes, you know. Hey, you started it.
Well, thank you everybody for being willing to do that. I hope it felt supportive and that I didn't put you on the spot and made you talk early in the morning, but you showed up here, so obviously you were a little bit comfortable with doing that. So I feel like what you did is a perfect metaphor. So that kind of cross-pollination that just took place and sharing of our experiences, that's how we nurture and nourish our communities. So with that, let's go ahead and segue into blossoming. So when I thought about the topic of blossoming, or really just the concept of blossoming, I think my mind immediately went to what I feel like most people's minds go to, which is flowers. And so I pulled on that thread a little bit more, and then I thought about beauty. And I am a person who loves beautiful things, and as much as I want to say that there's some deeply embedded reason, like because I'm a Taurus, that's why I love it. I just have a profound appreciation for beauty. So sights, scents, sounds, that's my jam. They do it for me. But when I think about beauty, I realize that I often associate it with things that are untainted or unmarred by challenge or difficulty. And I don't know if that's really fair to put all that pressure on flowers because there's a lot happening behind the scenes, for plants. Their life be lifing too. They might be struggling and depressed because they're not getting sun some days. They're being trampled by animals. So in the same sense, I had to realize that just like there are things that are going on behind the scenes for them to get to that point, there are things going on in our lives that maybe we don't take the time to appreciate as much. So when I think about blossoming, and as Annika mentioned, I see this not as an instant moment of beauty. It's a cycle, and it's not a one-time cycle, it's a sequence of things. So it's that plant seeds, it's the rooting, it's that pruning or deadheading, which we'll talk about a little bit more, and then the blossoming. But it's not sequences of your life that happen. So not the first 20 years you're planting seeds, then you're pruning for another 20, and then you finally arrive at blossoming when you're on the way out. That's not how that happens. I think it's something that cyclically happens throughout our life, constantly, throughout our years, throughout our weeks, and sometimes throughout our days. So for this talk, I wanted to focus less on the many aspects of my identity that I will happily discuss in private. Artist, educator, advocate, gastronome, lover of whodunits. I instead wanted to talk about some of the themes that I'm finding weaving throughout my life. Not necessarily as a pretense or pitching self-help or to give some false sense that I have all the answers. But just to let you know a little bit about what I'm learning and reflecting on through my days, and to invite you on this journey of reflecting with me. So for the sake of this conversation, and it's already been mentioned, we're going to talk about this journey of blossoming in 3 key themes. So first we have planting, next, or planting seeds and rooting. I put those 2 together. Then we have deadheading, which is a type of pruning, which we'll discuss soon. And then blooming and blossoming. Do I have any plant people in the room who know the difference between blooming and blossoming? Don't. My husband is a farmer. Put your hand up. But does anybody want to throw it out if you know? No? That's okay.
Isn't blooming the seed and blossoming is opening?
Okay, so close. So blossoming is the act, so that process of unfurling, and that bloom is that state of being. All right, so let's just keep that in the back of our heads. We're gonna come back to it for a moment. So when I think about this first stage of planting seeds and rooting, I think about moments of stillness and reflection and things that are happening behind the scenes in the dark. So I don't know how many of y'all remember those early year science classes when your teacher gave you the little seed that you take home, or that it was put on display in the class, and you gave it the things that it needed, and then it eventually sprouted, and then it started to grow roots. And for some of us, that was like watching paint dry. But it was moving at its own time and at its own pace, and it got exactly where it was supposed to be, right? I see this in a similar sense of our lives. So roots don't rush, they anchor, they gather nutrients, and they trust in the dark. And I feel like a lot of us have time trusting in that dark, uncomfortable space because we don't know what is going on and what is next. So I think about that a lot, particularly as it pertains to my art process, for example. So I have always wanted to be the type of artist that carries a sketchbook around, and like in the movies, like I have this burst of inspiration and I drop everything where I'm standing and I'm jotting things down, and that has never been the case. I like to think a deeply methodical artist, so I spend a lot of time in my brain. I'm thinking about what I want to create. I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm journaling. I'm reflecting. I'm trying to answer questions, but I'm also trying to think, like, what am I trying to convey? What do I want to be evoked? I'm adding things to Pinterest boards. I'm using up all the storage on my phone, taking pictures. And sometimes in that, when I find myself deep in that space, I realize that maybe I'm not submitting art to shows as frequently, or I'm not actually getting around to doing the thing. But I also have to acknowledge that maybe that's just the season I'm in. Maybe these are the things that I just need to do to nourish my artistic practice or me as an artist right now, and that's okay. So I want to acknowledge for myself and for us all that unseen seasons are still seasons of growth. Yeah, I see some head nods a little bit. So I want us to all think of a time. So they're going to be like some little prompts for reflection. You can take them, you can leave them. That you thought nothing was happening in your life, but maybe you were doing more, it just so happened to be in the dark. How did you feel moving through that? Were you judging yourself? Were you shaming yourself? Were people shaming you? Did you feel a way or some pressure to be performing or producing at a certain rate? And what would it look like to pivot that narrative for yourself moving forward? So let's hold that for a moment, because I want us to think about it and I want us to grasp the thing before I pivot on, because I talk fast. Everybody got that thing? Yeah? Okay, we'll come back to it. So as we've acknowledged that planting seeds and the root work is necessary, there's also a sense of harmony. So remember, there has to be some notion of, yes, we're doing the thing behind the scenes, but we eventually do have to work our way up to doing the work. So I think my mother used to say, faith without works is dead. So finding faith and figuring out what that semblance of harmony looks like for you day to day. And in order to keep feeding those roots, we eventually have to prune or let go of things in order to make sure that we're nourishing the parts of ourselves to get to where we need to be. So let's flow into the next rhythm, deadheading or pruning. So I use the term deadheading because, as I said, it's a very particular type of pruning where we're peeling away these dead and dying leaves to make sure that the plant is getting all the nutrients and channeling everything it needs to where it's supposed to go. So I look at that as a type of discerning release. So I think we've all had times throughout our life where we've let go of something, and while I do not personally love the phrase letting go of what doesn't serve you, it does have its place in certain contexts. So whether that be roles, people in our lives, locations where we're living, ideas and mindsets, not necessarily because the things were bad, but because they just weren't giving us the nourishment that we needed in that season. And on the other end, some of us have even had to shift how we're showing up with the thing, of discerning what we need from it to be able to show up and make the most of it. So sometimes that transition can be very gentle and intentional, and sometimes it is a middle finger and walking out of the door. Both are completely valid, and I personally will never judge whichever you determine is best for you. But that process of letting something go often involves reassessing our needs and our values and what success looks like to us in that moment, right? So I think as I was reflecting on this one story kept popping up in my head, and I felt like it's popping up, it's on my heart, I should talk about it. So almost a year ago, I received an email to do an interview for Virginia Business Magazine to be featured in the 100 People to Meet in 2025. I'm gonna skip over the part where gonna skip over the part where I thought it was a joke, I thought it was spam. I opened the email, closed my computer, let it sit for a couple of days, kind of marinate before I came back to it. But safe to say, I did respond. It was a real thing. I did the interview, and it was published toward the end of last year, right before the holidays. And I did not share this announcement publicly. No. That's not my friends calling me out. I think I shared it with my parents and maybe a few close people in my circle. But I felt really uncomfortable with sharing it. And as I reflected in the aftermath, it was because I did not feel like I had earned it. I did not feel like I was doing enough in this work of ecosystem building, like I hadn't solved the racial wealth gap. I hadn't, right? Which, yeah, walk with me. I hadn't solved these things. I hadn't figured out how to make Black and brown entrepreneurs feel more safe and supported in resource spaces. I hadn't did enough. And when I peeled back those layers a little bit more, I realized it was that I was deeply uncomfortable with letting people see me trying. I was deep and say it wasn't even necessarily a fear of failure or a fear of success. It was just I didn't feel comfortable letting people in on that process, that messy work and uncomfort of doing the thing. So I had to realize, okay, I'm sitting here complaining about how frustrated I am and how challenging this feels and how isolating it feels to be doing the work, but I'm also not talking about it. I'm not letting people know and announcing that I'm doing this thing and it's looking like this, and I'm craving connection, but also not putting myself out there. So again, that reassessment of needs and values. So what did I need from that? And generally when that looks like for me showing up. So when I share my achievements or when I share my art, like what does success look like in this for me? What is it that I'm going to need from this? And if I can check that off, then I hit my mark. So we set our own bars. We are the co-creators of the things in our lives. So, and honestly, the more I think about it, I really missed an opportunity because that was like wall of fame material for me to be like favorite grandchild for my grandmother. I should have sent that home, but
Is it too late?
It's not too late.
It's too late. I don't think it's too late. My cousin just got her PhD though, so I think I might have to. So this process of letting go, whether things, people, or mindsets, they allow us to kind of channel energy, like I said, into what's supportive and essential to that path that we're on and that thing that we're essentially trying to nourish in our lives. So similarly, how deadheading, like we said, ensures that those nutrients are going to the plants. We want to make sure that we are carving out enough time for ourselves for the big things and the small things too. Like I kid you not, I almost had a panic attack this morning because I chipped a nail and I was about to come in here with messed up nails. But I had to realize, okay, what do I need from this environment, from this space? And it is not for you all to know that my nails look perfect. And they always look perfect because they usually don't. So like I said, throughout the year, but sometimes the micro moments throughout the day too. So the reflection in this is like, what have you pruned or let go of in your life so something else could thrive? Or what's something that you're feeling like you need to, quietly or out loud, because remember, the middle finger and walking away, no judgment. Let's think about that for a second, and let's hold on to that too. So I know it's a lot of things. We just finished summer. Some of us were like, I can't go to the beach because my body's not right. Some of us didn't want to take the class because we felt like we weren't prepared enough or we weren't smart enough. So I guess maybe I'm projecting. So I had to work through it. But when we think about it at the end of the day, so remember this process, it's leading to nourishment, and don't we all want to be ultimately vibrant and nourished? Yeah? Okay. So now that we've done this work and this thing is kind of happening behind the scenes, what does blossoming look like? So as we mentioned, blossoming and being in bloom isn't this kind of ta-da moment. It's not instant, it is glorious once it happens, but there's a process of getting there. But it happens every time we dare to show up and to be visible. So as I mentioned, I rarely ever feel ready to show my art, but the times that I have, it's been so rewarding. And I promised my mother I would mention this. When I first started out drawing, so I've been drawing since as long as I can remember, first grade. I had my first art show at 9. I told my mom I made this series of pieces. I don't even know who taught me what a series was. But I made these series of pieces and I told my mom I wanted to sell my art. So she took it seriously, surprisingly, very seriously. She bought all these easels, she moved the furniture in our house, and she invited friends, family, and neighbors to kind of walk around our house like an art gallery and buy my art. Aww. And I think about it now like, oh, that's just so silly, they were entertaining my whims, but no, they were nurturing that part of me so that I could nurture it in myself. And when I go back home, these people still have my 9-year-old art for everybody in their lives to see, which is sweet. But so that was a process that I had. Luckily, I was young enough that I wasn't burdened down with all the doubts and things that we carry now. But then eventually I became a teenager, and there was a summer art academy that was very prestigious for teenage artists to come and study for 8 weeks to learn all these fundamentals of art and have an art show and sell your art to the community. And I wondered, like, am I good enough? Can I do this? But because I did that thing, now I had a little bit of courage to do this and pull the portfolio together, and I did it. I did it every summer until I graduated. And I sold art, I made wonderful connections, and that thing gave me a little bit more fuel to arrive to where I am now. So after a hiatus from doing art, I'm back in this space of figuring out, okay, we're reworking this muscle a little bit, so we know this is what this process feels like. We know this is what we need to lean into. And again, I'm still always questioning, do people care what I have to say? Do people want to buy and see the things that I have to show? But I will never know unless I show up and do it. And every time I have shown up in the past few years, I've won awards for my art, I have sold my art, and it is still, I wish again, no false sense of having all the answers. It is not easy, but these are the things that I'm learning that are helping me to figure out how to move through my days. So again, blooming and blossoming in the sense is that practice of determining what showing up looks like and doing it often and being committed to doing it often, whatever that looks like for you. And after this state of blooming, because remember, this blooming is a state of being. We are there once, but that's not our final state. So the petals fall, the soil rests, and it resets, and that spiral and that cycle begins all again, and as many times as it needs to. Nobody has to say, and granted, again, like remember, I'm throwing a lot of parallels and metaphors, but you're not plants. We can start over mid-cycle if we need to. We can roll it back. And that's the beauty of it. There is no finite finish line, and we arrive exactly where we are supposed to be on time. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk about our reflections momentarily.